Welcome on the pure wisdom. Chosen one's the biggest mistake you can make is to underestimate the quietest person in the room because they are already 10 steps ahead. Let's sink in. You see, life has a strange way of changing the script. The same individuals who mocked you turned their backs on you and disregarded you as if you were nothing. They're now discovering how terribly they misjudged. And let me tell you, it hits them like a ton of bricks. This is a cold, hard reality. According to psychologists, individuals seldom understand the importance of someone until they have lost access to them. Think about it. Some of the people who questioned you weren't just blind. They were purposely blind. They saw your potential. They just didn't want to accept it. And now reality is handing them an extra hefty dose of remorse. Hi, this isn't simply a case of, I told you so. No, this is more than vengeance, larger than validation. This is about discovering you've been the one all along. They knew it. They just thought you wouldn't find it out. But now the tables have turned. And let's be honest, watching them try to alter history would be comical if it weren't so awful. So hold on tight, because today we're delving into why they're suddenly obsessed with you. And believe me, at the end of this, you will never question yourself again. Number one, they never saw you. Only a mirror of their own anxieties. People did not avoid you because you were not remarkable. They disregarded you because you made them feel uncomfortable. You didn't fit in the box. They wanted you in, which terrified them. The reality is they saw your potential, but instead of acknowledging it, they pretended you were not present. It was never a question of you missing anything. They saw too much of themselves in you and disliked the similarity. Every time you entered a room, you forced individuals to face what they were not. You had traits that others secretly desired. Developed deep resilience. But rather than being motivated, they felt exposed. It wasn't because you weren't good enough. They were unwilling to admit their own flaws. And what is the simplest method to cope with that? Ignore, minimize, and pretend you're not a danger. Consider how many times you were treated as if you were invisible while bringing something significant to the table. They heard your suggestions, but disregarded them. They saw your efforts, but they pretended they didn't matter. Not because they didn't acknowledge your greatness, but because doing so would require them to accept their own inferiority. But now it's striking them hard. You kept going. You continued changing. And now that you're irrefutable, they don't know how to deal with it. They can't ignore you any longer. And remorse is eating them alive. They understand they should have helped you, acknowledged you, and treated you differently. But instead, they squandered time underestimating the one who was supposed to outgrow them. They didn't notice you because they were too busy dodging their own reflection. But now they must confront the truth. You were the only one the whole time, and they played at pretending differently. Number two, they kept you near. They wanted to control your light, not because they loved you. Some people never wanted you to win. They dreaded losing control of you, not because they disliked you. They saw your potential long before you did. Instead of encouraging you, they made sure you kept near enough so they could keep an eye on you, but never far enough that you outgrow them. They kept you around, claiming to be helpful, but in fact they were preventing you from reaching your full potential. They offered you just enough affirmation to prevent you from leaving, but not enough to make you feel confident. They wanted you in their circle not to pull you up, but to keep you contained. Because as long as you questioned yourself, they could maintain their place over you. Think about it. How many times did they belittle your accomplishments? How many times did they make you question yourself? It was not a coincidence. They saw something in you that terrified them. They recognized the passion, skill, and resilience. And they knew that if you ever learned your true power, you'd transform into something they couldn't control. They called it guidance, but it was really discouragement veiled in care. They advised you to be realistic, but what they actually meant was don't outshine me. They offered you backhanded compliments, just subtle enough to make you question yourself. They pretended to be on your side the whole time. But now it's striking them hard, because you awoke, you saw through the manipulation and asserted your authority. They are now terrified, and the control they previously had is gone. The misgivings they instilled in you never took root. You broke free. Even terrible. You no longer need them. And this is what scares them the most. Because the person they attempted to keep back is now the one they can't reach. Number 3, your difficulties. Whenever there was a penalty, it was for your refinement. You were not punished. Life was not being unfair to you. The difficulties you faced were not unanticipated. They were getting you ready for something larger. However, since you didn't have the complete picture at the time, it seemed like you were being dragged through hell for no reason. It seemed that no matter how hard you tried, life kept knocking you down while others appear to have it easier. You didn't comprehend that your difficulties were your training ground. Every failure, rejection, and betrayal, everything was working together to make you stronger. The cosmos was not against you. It was making sure you were prepared. Because the type of power you possess cannot be given to just anybody. It has to be earned. Consider those who have never experienced true hardship. They had everything given to them. Where are they currently? Most of them disintegrate when life becomes difficult because they were never designed to endure strain. But you had no option but to become resilient. You had to deal with suffering, loss, and disappointment without a safety net. And now you are unshakable. Those who questioned you assumed you were suffering because you were weak. But the reality is you were being reinforced in ways they would never comprehend. You were being sharpened as they became more comfortable. And now, when they confront their own issues, they realize they lack the mental, emotional, and spiritual power to overcome them. But you do, because you've already gone through the fire and emerged purified. Everything makes clear now that you've taken control. You understand why some things didn't work out, why certain individuals left, and why you had to go through so much. It was never a penalty. It was a preparation. And now, those who formerly looked down on you realize they could never have withstood what you went through. A number for their treachery was not a coincidence. It was their last act of desperation. Betrayal does not come from adversaries. It comes from those close to you, those that smiled that you claimed to support you and had your back. But while they were watching, waiting, and planning, they saw your progress. They witnessed your tenacity, and they understood that if you completely embraced your power, they would be left behind. And this worried them. So, rather than celebrating for you, they made one last desperate attempt to break you. They lied. They sabotaged. They skewed the narratives. They attempted to turn people against you. They put dirt on your name, expecting that it would taint you and slow you down. Because the reality is, they did not betray you by mistake. They did it because they were out of choices. Every previous effort to keep you little had failed. This was their final chance to determine your future. But here's where they erred. They thought you needed them. They believed that by cutting you off, turning people against you, and attempting to destroy your name, you would fall. They felt they had control over you. However, they failed to see that betrayal was not your breaking point. That was your breakthrough. Rather of killing you, it set you free. It indicated who was authentic and who was not. It made you stand on your own. And in doing so, you became stronger than before. And now it's striking them like a brick. Because you didn't just survive. You flourished and lived. Everything they tried to thwart, you simply helped you go closer to your goal. And this is the hardest thing for them. They have to accept the truth that they played themselves. They might have supported you, but instead, they turned themselves into villains in a plot in which you were always supposed to triumph. Number 5, they didn't desire you until they saw how others admired you. It's amazing how people's perceptions of you shift depending on who is looking rather than who you are. When they assumed you were simply another average person, they discarded, ignored, and treated you as an afterthought. But the moment they see others praising you, they remember your name. They suddenly show you respect. They suddenly want to be with you again. But let's get real. They never really doubted you. They always knew you had something unique. They just did not want to admit it until the world pushed them to. It's not like you weren't valued before. They were too arrogant, short-sighted, or insecure to recognize it for themselves. So they waited, hoping for external confirmation, for someone else to point out what was already clear. And now it's striking them like a brick, because you no longer need them. The version of you who formerly sought their approval does not exist anymore. They see others applauding you, supporting you, and acknowledging what they previously neglected, and they want back in. However, they overlook one important fact. Their access to you has ended. You don't praise folks for arriving late to the celebration. You do not. Welcome back those who needed the world to remind them they mattered. Before the spotlight shone on you, the right people recognized your worth. They were there while you were still in the trenches, creating and figuring it out. Those who have arrived recently, they're not here for you. They are here for who you have become. But here's the deal. They made their decision when they had the opportunity to stand by you. They did not. Now that you're on the rise, they want to act as if they've always had your back. But it is too late. They didn't want you until the world did. Now they may watch from the sidelines. Number 6, you were the blueprint. They took your ideas and mocked you. They laughed at you and dismissed you. You even labeled yourself insane. But they won't tell you that they were taking notes the whole time. They pretended that your ideas were ludicrous, but behind closed doors, they were observing, researching, and silently taking. You were the blueprint and the original source. The one who saw the vision before anybody else could understand it. And instead of supporting you, they mocked you until they recognized you were correct. They originally ridiculed you because they were intimidated by your ideas. You thought differently, moved differently, and had a viewpoint that others couldn't comprehend. Instead of acknowledging they lacked the same insight, they insulted you as unrealistic. But deep down, they felt you were onto something. They simply hope no one else sees it before they find out how to claim it for themselves. And now it's hitting them hard because the exact thing they sought to conceal is now something they're attempting to benefit from. They base their success on what they took from you. They're benefiting from your vision, but they can't completely appreciate it since they know they didn't create it. They must live with the shame of knowing that the person they insulted is the same person they secretly look to for inspiration. However, the truth always comes full circle. What is stolen does not last. Their basis is weak since it is not based on creativity. It was based on imitation. And as you progress, people begin to see where the ideas genuinely originated from, and their mask slips. They can't disguise the fact that they questioned you while still profiting from your intellect. They felt they might diminish your influence by claiming credit for your vision. But they didn't understand you were the cause. And no matter how hard they try, they will never be like you. Number 7, you were not rejected. You were concealed for a greater reason. Rejection was not a curse. It was for protection. The cosmos wasn't holding you back out of malice. It was concealing you till the proper time. It's not that people didn't recognize your brilliance. They were not permitted to. Because if you had been identified too early, you would have been surrounded by those who merely wanted to exploit you. Think about it. How many lives have been wrecked by early success? They had their big break too early before they fully realized who they were and could tell who was genuine and who wasn't. So what happened? They were devoured alive. They slipped into the wrong circles, trusted the wrong people, and lost themselves before they could completely realize their destiny. This was not going to happen to you. You weren't only destined to achieve. You were designed to maintain your prosperity. If you had been honored before you were completely prepared, you would have been surrounded by opportunists, manipulators, and individuals who regarded you just as a resource. They would have exhausted you, distracted you, and maybe derailed you. So the cosmos kept you concealed, ignored, and moving silently, not to punish, but to protect you. And now it's striking them like a brick, because now that you have emerged, you are unshakable. You know who you are. You know who is authentic and who is not. And you're walking into your mission without the burden of phony support, forced alliances, or parasites masquerading as allies. People once worried why you weren't receiving your due. They believed you weren't good enough, fortunate enough, or ready. But they didn't comprehend that your time was always planned. You were not being rejected. You were being honed. And now that it is your time, nothing and no one can stop what was always meant to be. Number 8. Their shame is intense since they recognized they chose comfort over progress. They believed they were winning because their lives seemed simpler while you struggled, failed, and rebuilt. They were comfy. They played things safe, sticking to their usual routines and avoiding anything that required actual risk. At the time, they laughed at you. They witnessed your sacrifices, late nights, and disappointments and wondered, why put yourself through all that? But now it's striking them hard, because whereas others remained constant, you progressed while they dodged difficulties. You hugged them as they remained in their comfort zone. You went into and now they realize that everything they avoided, such as hardship, uncertainty, and development, were exactly what made you successful. The fact is that they didn't laugh at you out of confidence. They were laughing to conceal their anxiety. Deep, they admired your bravery. They wished they had the courage to take chances, gamble on themselves, and push their limitations. Instead, they persuaded themselves that playing things safe was the better option. And now they are stranded. They look at their life and see stagnation. The same habits, the same attitude, the same untapped potential. Meanwhile, you're developing beyond what they believed was impossible. They cannot ignore it any longer. They can't claim that their approach was superior since your success is proving them incorrect. And the guilt is tremendous because they know they had the same opportunity as you did. They have the same 24 hours in a day and equal access to chances. The only difference was that you were willing to fight for something others were too afraid to pursue. Now they're trapped watching you climb while remaining precisely where they've always been. And deep inside, they realize it didn't have to be like this. Number 9. They never expected you to recover. But now you are stronger without them. They believed they had broken you for good. They imagined that the hurt they created would keep you trapped in self-doubt, too damaged to move on. They thought their absence would weaken you, that you'd spend your days wanting them, seeking their approval, and waiting for their return. They made a mistake, however, since you recovered rather than remaining damaged. Instead of collapse, you rebuilt, and now you are stronger than ever. And that scares them. They never wanted you to go on. They wanted you to stay with the version of yourself that needed them. The version that accepted less, endured abuse, and questioned your own value. They believed that their treachery, desertion, or mind games would leave a lasting mark. But what they didn't comprehend was that your agony wasn't the end. It was your rebirth. Healing did more than simply help you heal. It improved your eyesight. You can now see through their deception, meaningless words, and efforts to keep you under their control. The fog is gone. You realize the mental games for what they were. The gaslighting, the guilt trip, the subtle attempts to make you feel tiny. It no longer works because you're not the same person who used to endure it. And that's what's striking them hard. You no longer need them. They no longer have any control over you. You're no longer looking for closure from those who have always craved control. You're no longer explaining yourself to individuals who claim not to comprehend you. You no longer have wounds that do not belong to you. They are now the ones experiencing the loss. Because even when you've outgrown them, they remain the same, stuck in their habits while you flourish. realizing too late that the person they attempted to break is now invincible. Number 10, your development serves as a mirror, forcing others to confront their own lack of progress. They are not unhappy with you. They are unhappy with themselves. Instead of acknowledging it, they throw their displeasure onto you every time you raise, level up, or demonstrate that improvement is possible, reminding them of all they did not achieve. And it is a difficult thing to take. It's easy to create excuses when everyone else is stuck in their ways. It's easy to excuse playing it safe when no one is pushing themselves too hard. Then you came along. You continued to develop, learn, and evolve, whilst they remain stationary. And they can no longer overlook the difference between who they are and who they might have been. Your accomplishment is more than simply inspiring. It is also revealing. They used to mock your ambition, belittle your aspirations, and minimize your accomplishments. Not because they believed you were insane, but because it made them feel better about achieving nothing. They persuaded themselves that success was out of reach, that change was too difficult, and that some individuals just got fortunate. But now, you've demonstrated that it wasn't chance. It was about discipline and sacrifice. It was refusing to remain comfy. And that's what's striking them hard. Because while you took risks, others made excuses. While you were investing in yourself, others were squandering their time. And now the disparity is apparent. But instead of utilizing your success as inspiration, they despised it, since recognizing that you earned it would imply that they had the same possibilities but squandered them. So they do whatever is easiest to portray. They describe you as fortunate, arrogant, or altered. They find methods to minimize your path, since it is simpler than confronting their own stagnation. But this is the reality. You did not leave them behind. They decided to remain where they were. Number 11. They believed they could alter the story, but the fact is apparent. Now, they believed they could rewrite history, distort the facts, and manage the narrative to make themselves appear good. They wanted others to think that they contributed to your success, that they encouraged you, directed you, or that you owed them anything. They attempted to erase the struggle, betrayals, and moments. They laughed at you when no one was looking. But here's the trouble with lying. They don't stand up to reality. Initially, some people believe them. Perhaps they portrayed themselves as the ones who always knew you'd succeed. Perhaps they attempted to persuade others that they were your staunch supporters. Some even had the nerve to claim they helped develop what you built. But suddenly everything is unraveling because of the truth. The fact is obvious. The evidence is in your trip. People remember the way they handled you. They recall how they spoke about you while you were suffering. They recall the uncertainty, the side remarks, and the contemptuous attitude. And now they're scurrying. They understand that no matter how much they attempt to change the past, your achievement reveals the true narrative. What's striking them hard is the reality that they can't claim credit for something they never believed in. They weren't on your side when it counted. They did not help you when you needed it. And now that you've arrived, their guilt is crushing them because they realize they weren't a part of the voyage. But they urgently want to be involved in the conclusion. But here is where they made a mistake. They did not contribute to your progress. It arrived despite them. And no matter how much they attempt to alter history, the truth always prevails. They lost their position in your tale when they decided to distrust you. They now have to live with their remorse. Number 12. They can't shake the guilt of mishandling you. They assumed you would always be there. They felt they could take you for granted, dismiss or ignore you, and you'd never go. They felt they could treat you any way they wanted while still retaining your energy, devotion, and presence. But now it's hitting them hard because they've lost something valuable that can't be replaced. See, when people believe they have limitless access to you, they do not appreciate you. They expect you'll keep turning up, forgiving, and waiting for them to recognize your value. They viewed your goodwill for weakness. They assumed your forbearance meant they could try their luck, but they didn't know you were never the issue. They were, and now remorse is eating them alive. Because you did not just walk away. You achieved a higher level. You recovered. You grew. When given the opportunity, you transformed into everything they could not see in you. And now they are unable to escape the world that they created for themselves. They bungled something precious. The worst part, they can see other individuals praising you right now. They see you prospering even without them. They see characteristics they had missed being appreciated by someone else. And at that point, the remorse becomes intolerable since it is too late. They cannot change the past. They cannot reverse their errors. They cannot go back and treat you differently. They assumed you'd always be an option, but they were mistaken. Now, they must bear the burden of knowing they have lost something special, not because of what you did, but because of how they treated you and your feelings of remorse. It never fades. Number 13, you become what they secretly want to be, but were too terrified to pursue. They won't acknowledge it, but they have always respected you, not only for your accomplishments, but also for the fortitude it took to get there. The way you moved differently, the way you took chances when others stayed safe, and the way you refused to shrink to fit in with others. They saw you break free from the constraints they were too frightened to question, and instead of cheering you on, they despised you for it. But here is the reality. It never was about you. Their resentment, jealousy, and side remarks. It all sprang from their own unfulfilled potential. They saw in you what they wanted they had for themselves. They wanted to be bold. They wanted to be courageous. They wanted to pursue something larger. But when it was time to take the jump, they hesitated. They chose comfort. They chose security. They chose dread. And now, seeing you triumph is a terrible reminder of what might have been since you demonstrated it was possible. You broke their justifications for inactivity. They can't convince themselves that success is just for certain individuals. They can't say it's impossible after seeing you generate chances out of thin air. And that understanding is striking them like a brick. When individuals do not follow their aspirations, they have two options: be inspired or be bitter, and far too many people choose the latter. Instead of asking, "How can I grow too?" they inquire, "Who does this person think they are?" Instead of using your trip as encouragement, they exploit it to bring you down, since it is simpler to despise you than to confront their own concerns. But here's the deal. They made their decision. They all have the same 24 hours and the same opportunity to fulfill their destiny. They just didn't. And now they have to deal with the fact that you become everything they were too terrified to pursue. Number 14, your accomplishment demonstrates that you never needed their approval. They believed that their affirmation was the key to your achievement. They felt that if they ignored you, questioned you, and refused to help you, you would never succeed. They thought that if you didn't have their approval, you'd quit up, remain little, or crawl back in search of it. But now it's striking them like a rock because you've proven them completely incorrect. You did not just succeed. You thrived. You constructed yourself from the ground up without their freebies, encouragement, or approval. And that fact hurts because they can no longer pretend they were an important part of your path. They were never the key that you were. Some individuals feel powerful because they believe they have influence over who wins and who loses. They select who is supported and who is removed. And when they decided to ignore you, they assumed that was the end of the tale. They believed their quiet would deter you. But they failed to see that you were never searching for their approval in the first place. And now your success is a smack in the face, not because you're winning, but because you're doing it without them. The power they believed they had over you is gone. The realization that you needed them broke the notion that their acceptance dictated your value. Completely damaged. The hardest aspect is that they realized they might have been a part of the adventure. They may have helped you. We celebrated you and stood behind you. But instead, they chose skepticism. They chose quiet. They opted to sit back and observe, waiting to see whether you failed. They now have to deal with the reality that you didn't. Your accomplishment demonstrates that you never needed them. But maybe they needed you, and now it is too late. In the end, the truth will always come out. Every uncertainty they raised, every minute they neglected you, every time they attempted to diminish your value, it backfired. Because you now stand towering, unstoppable, and irrefutable. And then they're left to drown in their own regrets, forced to watch as the person they disregarded becomes someone they can no longer contact. But let us be clear, it was never about proving them incorrect. Your accomplishment was motivated by anything other than vengeance. It was about being the person you were always supposed to be. They were just a transitory impediment, a background murmur that lacked the strength they claimed. Because the reality is, they never had influence over your fate. They were merely oblivious to the power that was already inside you. And so, while they languish in their remorse, you go on. No resentment, no looking back. It's just pure progression. Because you were never meant to remain in the past. You were always destined to flourish, prosper, and stand in your own strength without their approval. Allow them to feel the weight of their loss. Allow them to accept the truth that they mistreated something rare. And now it's gone forever. Because of you, you're only just getting started. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share the truth. Hit the like button. Leave a comment below and let me know which section spoke to you the most. And if you're looking for more eye-opening information that speaks to your spirit rather than simply your ears, make sure you subscribe and enable alerts because, believe me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. And one more thing, share it. Someone out there needs this message as much as you do. Be the reason they have an aha moment today. Let us develop together. If you're enjoying the content on Pure Wisdom and find value in the messages we share, I encourage you to subscribe. Based on the latest analytics, 93.9% of viewers are watching without subscribing. By subscribing, you not only stay updated with new content, but also support the channel's growth, allowing us to continue spreading wisdom for the chosen ones. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an important message. Let's build this community together.